All right, I am Ryan Aversa, and I am here with Wesley Mong, a sophomore biochem major, and I'm going to be asking him a few questions about my 8A testing the hypothesis. So, my hypothesis revolves around the implementation of a non-lethal weapon practice in law enforcement. So, Wes, do you think that the way police officers and those of the like handle situations with lethal weapons, do you think those situations are handled correctly?
No, I don't think so. I think there's way too many lethal killings nowadays with police officer shootings and things like that can be taken care of in non-lethal ways.
So what you're saying is there's a lot of situations that police officers get into that actually don't really even need a gun at all.
Uh, they should carry guns just in case, but I think they're too quick to resort to shooting and using guns instead of other non-lethal techniques.
So do you think that, still on the lethal track, do you think that could be maybe fixed or tightened up by maybe implementing more training altogether?
Yeah, I would say so. I would agree.
All right, so yeah, training is definitely helpful, but then, you run into a lot of problems with funds and all of that. But getting onto the more non-lethal side, do you think there are more benefits than negatives to implementing 100% non-lethal defenses?
I would agree. I'm not sure about 100% non-lethal.
Definitely a gray area for sure.
Like I said, I'm sure a cop having a gun in certain situations will be, is necessary, especially when their life's on the line. But, I would definitely like to see maybe a 90%, implementation of non-lethal techniques, such as increasing the rules of engagement, if you want to call it, for cops and police being allowed to use lethal lethal actions in certain cases.
Okay, yeah, I definitely agree. I think that the non-lethal track could definitely become a bigger picture. It all just comes down to training. But do you think you could see the public and all markets of people getting behind a more non-lethal movement, or do you think it would be immediately shut down because of just the world we live in, basically?
No, I think the public is definitely wanting to push for more non-lethal techniques and procedures for police, especially with a lot of recent unnecessary deaths of teenagers and even cops themselves just getting killed in the line of duty unnecessarily. Because people are too quick to fire or draw their guns. So I'm sure the public would definitely like to see more of a non-lethal approach to police work.
Yeah, I think the general public would definitely come to a consensus that it could definitely only help, but not hurt. Branching off of that, do you think the public would begin to look at the police force differently with only non-lethal weapons?
Well, I'm sure if it's only non-lethal, you'd have criminals that are just as with that same knowledge, understanding that they're not going to get killed, and they're only going to have to face non-lethal, types of weapons if the police force takes 100% non-lethal. So, I mean, at least the threat of arms, I think, would go a lot farther to preventing certain situations from occurring than being completely unarmed.
So you think you could see a lot of people
I think there needs to be
jumping on this opportunity almost?
Yeah, I think there needs to be more of a compromise than just a solution towards one end or the other.
So say police forces are now equipped with a non-lethal weapon that, I don't know, for say, puts some person doing a wrongdoing into like almost paralysis mode. Do you think, I mean, that sounds like a pretty effective method to me. Do you think that would switch things up?
I mean, if you're talking about a taser, then if you're talking about a taser or something of the sort, again, you have, I guess, issues with how well it'll keep the target down,
Yeah.
and issues with, like, reloading and things like that. But, yeah, if we had a magic plasma gun that could, like Star Trek could just stun people, then yeah, that would work just as well. But until then, I guess.
So do you see the public looking at police differently?
Yeah, I mean, then they'd see them more as protectors.
Just all around.
Yeah, all around protectors versus the bad guys trying to catch you for every little infraction.
Okay. I could definitely get behind that. So say a non-lethal movement becomes successful and cops start to realize how to utilize the tools that they have. Do you think you see the public move to a non-lethal movement? Because you see a lot of people in today's day and age getting their concealed weapons permits and all that. Do you think you see them going more towards having a taser on their side or something along those lines?
It comes down to what your non-lethal weapon is.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's a taser, nobody's gonna feel safe enough with a taser if they know they can have a gun. But again, if you develop some Star Trek gun that can shoot out and reloadable form of taser bullets, if you want to call them, then yeah, I could definitely see. It just all depends on the non-lethal technology comes out.
Okay, so non-lethal technology has been, it's just statistically cheaper than lethal weaponry. Assault rifles, all those things. They're all extremely expensive. Do you have any ideas for what could be done with money saved? Like maybe a training school or anything like that with the transition to non-lethal?
I think you just have to get public awareness and, like you were talking about, public support for non-lethal movement behind non-lethal movement. If you're gonna see programs like that, I mean, hell, if I'm saving money, I'm gonna go spend it on groceries rather than training.
Of course.
Unless you have the public support behind the movement, then it doesn't matter if it's cheaper or not.
Okay, so just branching off of the public still, do you think the non-lethal movement and a large amount of law enforcement would start almost like a non-violent movement? I don't want to parallel Martin Luther King, but something of that nature.
Vigilante type?
Yeah, almost.
No. I don't think they would. Most people just buy stuff for self-defense.
Yeah.
I think the average American would have the same mindset. They just want to...
The law enforcement is the law enforcement.
Yeah,
they do what they do.
And that, they're just citizens who are trying to defend themselves, whether it's with a gun or some form of non-lethal weapon.
So do you think we would see a downplay of... Let's say, the NRA has been a big topic of discussion recently. Do you think they would be behind something like this? How would that affect how people think of just handguns in general, anything like that?
They would have to be behind it. Any non-lethal technology that is efficient enough to allow for police forces and private citizens to defend themselves just as well as with the gun, yet in still a non-lethal manner, then they would obviously have to get behind that because, nobody should be going around telling everybody that a gun's better because it can actually kill somebody instead of just keeping them paralyzed.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And then finally, so you brought up the Star Trek gun, but do you have any suggestions other than that would be effective? Say a different type of ballistic or maybe just hand weapons. What do you think would be the most effective?
The most effective and the only thing you're really going to generate support for is something that can, in high volume, launch numerous amounts of, either stun-like ability onto somebody, like a taser, a taser bullet, if you want to call it. Some along those lines. A hand device isn't really going to cut it.
Because cops deal with a lot of different
guns and things like that.
Yeah.
So it all comes down to utility in the field.
All right. Well, thank you very much.